know when you're ready.
Oh, another call.
All right, yeah, no problem.
Alright, sorry about that. I'm back again.
Okay. All right, so let me know when you're up. And if you need to want to go through that after start flow.
I'm just double checking everything. I missed a couple of things, but alright, I got it all good. Just disconnect the ground air supply.
Chief, disconnect ground air supply.
Yesterday we looked at the
Copy.
ADF function on the UHF
Ground
radio.
air supply is now disconnected.
I'm sorry?
Did we look at the ADF function on the UHF radio?
No, we did not.
Okay. All right. So, all right, on the TACAN, you
Yep.
talked a little bit about it yesterday about air to air.
Mm-hmm.
So if you'll select air to air TR.
Done.
Okay. And you'll see up there that your TACAN is no longer reading any distance information.
It actually wasn't to begin with, but that's because I got it set for Kudasai.
Okay. Put yours in Yankee.
Done.
And go to channel 67.
Done.
Now I will put mine in Yankee, and I will go to channel 4.
And I now have miles ticker.
Yeah, you'll see your pointer just going to rotate around the dial, but we are getting miles between the two airplanes. Of course, we're so close; it's reading just about 0.
Oh yeah. We did go over the air-to-air tethering for the TACAN.
All right. So now, leave yours on 6-7. Go back to TR and just go back to X-ray. We're going to talk a little bit about
Okay.
TACAN before we go. The other thing is using that DF steer button down there on the bottom, below the TACAN. See where it says mode, nav mode.
Yeah.
Select DF.
Okay.
That's direction finding. Now look up at your TACAN now. Look at your HSI.
Yeah.
All right. It says no distance now because we're no longer in TACAN mode. and you've got a little red flag on the inside. And what's it say on that little red flag?
Delta Foxtrot.
All right. Now select your UHF comm to ADF.
Done.
Now, what I'm going to do is, we're both on the same frequency of 305 in manual. We're both in ADF, and we're both in DF.
Mm-hmm.
Now that tone button down there to the right of my mode knob, that's, when I press that button, it's going to generate a tone that you'll hear, and it transmits that tone. In ADF, when I transmit that tone, your pointer on the outside of your bezel is going to swing and point to my airplane.
Okay. Yep. And it goes right back.
If you press your tone button, my pointer will point to your airplane. There it goes. So that's the way you can actually find somebody in flight if you needed to do that. And of course, if you go back to TACAN, you can get distance to them. So we'll set our UHF back to both and the nav mode back to TACAN.
Done.
Now, on our HSI, we have the pointer on the outside of the scale that is right now pointed towards the TACAN station here at Cobaletti. And we're getting distance information from that. And you can see we're about a half a mile away from it over here. Or, well, we're under a half a mile, but you can see the distance on the scale. It's just off the zero a little bit. And if we take our course knob and center it on the pointer, we'll center up the CDI needle.
Mm-hmm.
So if you rotate that around and center up your course knob.
Okay.
So what heading do you read on your course?
About 021.
Okay. So your CDI needle now shows that you are on the 021 what? Radial or bearing?
Bearing.
Why is it a bearing?
Wouldn't the radial be the opposite?
Well, it would be, but what makes this a bearing? What makes a bearing?
It's
What's the difference between a bearing and a radial?
the bearing is direction of our aircraft relative to the object we're getting a bearing for, and the radial I believe is the reverse. It's from the object to us.
You're right. So a bearing is to the station. A radial is from the station. So if you turn your airplane to 021, you would be flying the 21-degree bearing to that station right there, because you're going to it. And if you look on the inside of your scale, on the inside of your, right in the middle of your HSI, you see your little airplane symbol?
Yeah.
And on the right wing, you've got a little triangle, a little white flag triangle that's there. You see that?
Yeah.
That's called a to-from flag. That shows you're going to the station. And that flag follows the pointer on the outside of the bezel. But if you turn to 021 right now, and you were flying that to that TACAN, you would be on the 21-degree bearing. So now, if we rotate this course knob 180 degrees around behind us, and center it up again.
Yeah, 201.
Now that is the radial. If you turn to the left to the 201 and was flying that, you would be flying the 201 radial from the station. And you see your little to from flag is now pointing behind you. Behind the arrow anyway.
Yeah.
So that's flying a bearing or flying a radial. So when we fly to Kataisi, we're going to be flying on the 050 degree bearing. When we pass Katasi and we intercept the 93 degrees outbound, we're going to be flying the 93-degree radial from Katasi. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, when we're navigating out here, on a leg like the second leg, we're going to Katasi to Vaziani. You normally want to fly to the halfway point before you change over to the next station. So if we've got roughly 120 miles between Katasi and Vaziani, we want to go 60 miles from Katasi. Then we'll change to Vaziani and fly that bearing inbound.
Okay.
The reason for that is for navigation accuracy. Okay? If you can imagine that TACAN out there, when it's transmitting its azimuth signal out of the TACAN, it's transmitting a 360-degree signal around that TACAN, right? So think of that signal as a circle, or like a piece of pie. The further you get from that TACAN station, the bigger that circle gets.
Yeah, the bigger your 1 degree gets.
That's correct. In real world terms, if you're 60 miles from the station, 1 degree is equal to 1 mile. So if you are right in the middle, right on that 1 degree, you could be up to a half a mile left or right and still be on that same degree. So if you're 30 miles from the station, 1 degree is a half a mile wide. If you're 15 miles, it's a quarter mile. If you're 7.5 miles, it's an eighth of a mile wide. So you can see the closer you get, the tighter you get on that wedge of pie you're coming in on that station. With that knowledge, you know that as you approach a station, don't chase the needle. If the needle starts wavering one side or the other, don't chase it, because you're getting in that little narrow piece of pie where you're never going to catch it. So when we're navigating out here normally, say like today, we're going to take off from here. We're going to fly to Katasi. We're going to make the turn at Katasi, outbound on the 93 degrees, out to Vaziani, fly inbound to Vaziani, right turn there, come all the way back around to 265, come back to Kobaleti. Okay? When you're navigating out here, you normally do not have to fly right over the station as far as going to the next leg. The reason I say this is because if you can picture, say we're going to Katasi, and there's the TACAN, and we fly right over the TACAN, and by the way, when we do that, say on our first leg here, we're going to take off, and we're going to climb to 20,000 feet. After we pass Vaziani, we'll climb up to 30,000. But say we pass overhead Katasi at 12,000 feet. What will our DME read when we pass right over the Katasi TACAN? What do you think the distance is going to read when we ride over Katasi?
Should probably say, since we're 20,000 up, probably it's going to be close to a mile.
Well, we'll be 12. Say we're 12,000 feet up.
Oh, it would be a mile then, right?
Well, how many feet in a nautical mile?
Oh, nautical miles. I have no idea.
It's about 6,000. It's like 6,030 or something. Anyway,
Yeah, so it'll read 2 miles.
Just call it 6. Yeah, it's going to read 2 miles. So when you're overhead, it's reading slant range distance. So if you're over it at 12,000 feet, it's going to read 2 miles. If you're at 18,000 feet over, it's going to read 3 miles. So with that in mind, what we can do is we don't have to fly. If we fly right over Katasi, as soon as we pass Katasi, we're off course on the next leg. We've already gone north of our next leg, and we have to come back around to the right, intercept, take a intercept heading, intercept that, and then turn back to intercept that outbound course. What we can do as we're approaching Katasi, we can actually make a turn to intercept before we pass the station. If this one, probably about a mile before you get there, you can make your turn to intercept.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know, if we're at 12,000 feet, so you're going to be 2 miles over, add a mile to that, that's going to give you, when the DME reads about 3 miles, start a nice right turn. And what I do is when I'm approaching the station, when I'm about 10 miles out, I will follow the pointer on the dial and I will set my outbound course for the next leg.
Mm-hmm.
That way I'm not looking down when I'm trying to make this turn to intercept. But at about 3 miles, if I'm at 12,000 feet, about 3 miles, I'm going to start a nice right turn. And as I go by the station, I'll see that pointer swing by the station. And hopefully as I'm coming up to 093 on my heading, my course line will be moving back in and I'll roll out right on course. And then I'll just track that outbound.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now, the one thing I want to take when I'm approaching Vaziani. Now this first leg we're changing from 50 degrees to 93 degrees. That's only a 43-degree heading change.
Yeah, the next one's pretty large.
And the next one's almost a 180-degree change. So it's a pretty sharp angle. We're going to be, it's a pretty acute angle. We're going to be coming around on, so you can actually make that turn a lot sooner. So if we're at 20,000 feet, you're roughly 3 miles up. So maybe about 5 miles before you get there, you can start your turn around to intercept.
Okay.
You're probably still going to go off course, coming back around. You have to make some kind of intercept coming back around. But anyway, that's the idea. And I can tell you in real world, the aircraft navigation, the autopilot, does what's called an asymptotic capture. And when your autopilot's flying the airplane and it looks at the course change on the next leg and will transit to the next leg to make that course change based on your speed and how much turn it has to make on the next leg.
Yep, that's a lot of experience on that with the Falcon BMS F-16.
Yeah, and that's the way it does. That's the way they do it in the real world. And I've seen the 7.4 when we were flying that. If there was hardly any course change, it would wait till we're about a half a mile from the waypoint before it would cycle to the next leg because it wasn't making any course change.
Mm-hmm.
If it had a big change, sometimes it would do 5 or 6 miles before you get there. It would cycle to the next waypoint and start a heading change. So, anyway. All right, you've got your CDI centered, right?
My CDI?
Yeah, your course knob. It's centered. Let's put it back on the. Let's put it back on our
runway heading
pointer. Well, no, on the pointer. Right now, recenter your CDI. So we're on the bearing inbound.
So 050.
No, I'm sorry. At this tack end here, you still got Katasi tuned in.
Yeah. So 021 then.
Yeah, put it on 021.
Okay. Done.
Now, put it on 024.
Okay.
Now we see our CDI, our course deviation indicators, off to the right a little bit. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what I want you to do is I want you to intercept that new course here on the ground.
Okay, so actually taxi the aircraft?
Yep. So you're gonna taxi and make a it's off to the right, so you make just a sharp right turn. And when you intercept, turn back and line and point your nose back at the TACAN.
Yeah, I need to go forward some more. Done?
So now you've got your needle center.
Correct.
Good, good, good. All right. So the idea here is you take an intercept heading, center that needle, and then back to your inbound course. Today we're flying in a no-wind situation. There's no crosswind at all for us. So your heading should match your course. If we had a crosswind, say you put your heading on your course and you start drifting off course, you can judge by how much drift you have, how much correction you need to make. Say we started drifting to the right of course, so our needle would start moving left.
Mm-hmm.
So we could plug in, say, a 10-degree left turn, get back on course, then only take 5 degrees out of that. So we put like a 5-degree drift angle in there to correct that for the drift.
Mm-hmm.
And see how that holds it. If it holds it, then we put in the right amount of correction.
Okay.
So that's how you can. That's how this TACAN will correct for wind drift. But today there's no wind, so you're not going to have to worry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and put in our outbound course now, 050. And you'll find we're close enough here that we can tune in Katasi. And this TACAN will actually pick it up on the ground here, but you're going to have a little problem. Now, the one thing about doing this means that we're not going to have to go heads down to change frequencies on this very short leg on the first leg out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And look at your course needle right now. It should be centered up.
It should be?
Yeah, if you put 050 on your course and you tune in Katasi.
Oh, yeah, it didn't do that. 1 second. 44 X-ray. Yeah, I'm centered up.
There you go. Yeah, that shows you. This is, if you had put 55 degrees like you originally plotted on the course, look what it does to you. If you put 55 in there, look what it does to your course out here. So that's the difference between magnetic and true. So your TACANs are oriented to a true, so they can match your compass.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's going to happen is after we take off, you're going to find you're going to have to reset your TACAN. Just click it out of TR to receive and back to TR to get it to start updating properly. Otherwise, after we take off, you're gonna look down, your DME is not going to be moving at all. So that's telling you, and your course won't change either. That's telling you that you got to recycle it. It's just a thing here in DCS. So when it loses signal, you should get an off flag, but it doesn't. It just stays there. And then when it picks up again, it doesn't start updating until you reset it.
Okay.
All right, so go ahead. You go ahead and make a right turnaround, and we'll taxi out to runway 7 for departure. got your altimeter set to 2979.
I will here in a moment.
Okay. And you're in the electric mode.
Yes.
There you go. I'm going to take the right side. You'll pull a little bit ahead on the left side.
2.
And I'll be following you. Okay, so you'll be on lead this time.
Oh, great.
So what we want to do is say set the brakes. Our brakes on. Set mill power. Going up 90%. You say brakes in 3, 2, 1 now. Then burner now. Normal rotation about 160 out there, positive rate gear up. Go to your 10 degrees pitch up and hold that until we get to 300 knots, and then we're going to hold 300 knots. 300 knots, come out of burner, and then you want to turn and head up towards Kitasa. And we'll plan to climb to 20,000. We want to climb to 20,000 at 300 knots, and then we level off. We'll accelerate to 350 and cruise at that. By the time we get to Vaziani, we'll have dropped our external tank. So after Vaziani, we'll climb up to 30,000 and come back to Kobalet.
Okay.
So when you're ready,
Brakes on.
get your nose wheel up.
Oh yeah, I gotta do that. Make sure I got everything set.
All the switches in a fancy eye-catching position.
All right. So it's brakes and then what do you say for the engines?
Set mill power.
Okay. So it's brakes and set power,
Yep.
and then brakes
Brakes in
1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1.
Yep.
And burner on.
Burner now.
Burner now. Okay. Brakes on. No power. Brakes in 3, 2, 1. Burner on. Rotate.
Gear up. There you go.
Gate.
Now you want to come back to about 95% on your RPM. And then start your turn to Kitasa. And hold 300 knots. And you probably want to cycle your tack in now to get it updating.
Okay. You said 12,000 is our first leg for altitude?
Well, we just want to be climbing at 300 knots.
Okay.
So, and we're headed up to 20, so whatever we can get.
Okay.
And you want to hold 300, there you go. Now, track inbound to Katasi.
So, it's 32 nautical miles and we're showing 20, so I should have switched over by now, correct? To the new.
Be on Katasi, 44X. Are you on Katasi?
I am now.
Okay.
And yeah, we're on the right needle.
Yeah, we are. Good. Now we're 10 miles out. You can now, we're close enough to just fly your pointer and set your outbound course to 93 degrees.
I just lost 5% of my power.
That's all right. That has to do with the temperature change up here.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So we're almost 18,000.
You'll bump it up in the burner and then bring it right back, you'll find that you'll get your throttle back to, you can set it back to 95%.
A little bit too early on that, sorry.
But now you can start your turn to intercept the outbound.
Okay, that's right. I always forget that when it's left, it's actually right.
Yep. So we want to intercept the 93 degrees outbound.
Oh, it came in fast.
Yeah, because we're really close to it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The is really close. That's why we want to start our turn early to intercept this outbound. So now what you're going to have to do is intercept it.
Yeah, come back right again. Yeah.
So you're really close, so it's not going to take much of an intercept heading to do this. So I would just go maybe about 10 degrees to the right and then let it come back into you.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to chase it. You can just take an intercept heading and then let it come to you. Now we'll level at 20,000 here and accelerate to 350 knots.
Oh, there I got my power back.
And you'll hold about 350 here at 20,000. And we're going to track that 93 degrees out down for 60 miles before we change over to Bataljon. What do you think our ground speed is right now?
We're doing 350 right now. I don't know if this has a ground speed indicator, but it's probably something like 500 knots or so.
Why is that?
Because as you increase in altitude, you got less air, so you're there's less air pushing in on the pitot tube, so your knots indicated is less than your actual speed, but it's relative to your altitude.
Absolutely, yep. So that's actually called true airspeed. So our true airspeed up here is higher than our indicator. We're indicating 350, we're probably truing about 500. And if there's no wind, the 500 true airspeed represents your ground speed. So if we had a 20-knot headwind, we would be truing 500, but our ground speed would be 480. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all the speed terms. We've got indicator for what we're looking at, true airspeed, what we're actually doing, and ground speed, what we're doing over the ground. All these aviation terms. And boy, they love acronyms.
Yeah, I saw a video that was making fun of this stuff earlier.
Yeah. First thing when I would transition to a new airplane, like when I went from the classic 7.4 to the 400 model, which you know the glass cockpit and all. First thing I did was get all the acronyms printed out and start memorizing those because there were a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Same thing in here. I've got when I do a new airplane in here, I get all the acronyms down. Give me a reference sheet. When you read the manual, you know it uses the acronym, so I need to know what the hell I'm looking at.
Yeah. When that net ball gets off, it jacks up your HSI.
Yep. Now we're approaching the 60-mile mark.
So we're going to be switching over to 22 X-ray.
Yep.
And then, yeah, the deviation becomes very clear.
Yep. Imagine if you had tracked on the 98 degrees outbound, we would be nowhere near the 98 inbound.
Yeah, at that range, we'd be looking at 2 or 4 nautical miles deviation.
Yeah. Well, you'd have been tracking 5 degrees off the whole time for 60 miles.
And then, of course, this is going to get more accurate as we go in.
Yep, it will. Now we're coming into the wedge instead of going out of the wedge.
My center line's dry. I don't know about yours.
Not yet. Mine should run out here shortly though. There it goes.
You're ready for drop?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, drop them.
There they go.
This call I can ignore.
So now we're approaching, so you go ahead and set your outbound course.
Oh yeah, we were close. So we're going to 265.
Yeah. And I'd start a turn here any time now to come around to 265.
Yeah, I'm gonna start it right now.
Now once we get stabilized outbound, we'll climb up to 30,000. That'll give us a nice low fuel burn. The higher you go with these straight pipe turbines, a lot better it likes the gas. Better you'll have with the fuel. The high bypass turbines, like the later model airplanes, wasn't quite as critical, but it still counts. But they're more fuel efficient than these older ones.
Mm-hmm. For this one, we have 144 nautical mile legs, so at about 72 nautical miles, we can swap over to 670 X-ray.
Now you can start to climb up to 30,000.
take it that's the maximum performance climb on this aircraft?
Yeah, and it also keeps your wing clean. You start going below 300 knots, and the chance your flaps making out auto.
Okay.
So we just want to keep the wing, keep the flaps up on the wing. Have you ever gotten hypoxia in the game?
Yeah, a long time ago, back in beta with the A10, when they didn't have the oxygen system correctly done. It's a fun time trying to figure out why our screens were all going black.
Yeah. Right. Hey, what happened? You do it. You can do that in here. You can dump the cabin and turn the oxygen off, and you'll get hypoxia.
I heard you get slightly elated right before you die, so...
Well, everybody's different. The hypoxia affects everybody differently. But yeah, one of the symptoms is you get to where you just don't care.
So we're... Oh, there we go. It's starting to cut in now. I was starting to get worried.
Yeah, that's a pretty big heading change coming out of there. And you can look down on the bottom right over here, and this one kind of over there, and see what your cabin pressure is, what your cabin altitude is. Mine's right
1-0?
about, yeah, 10,000 feet right now.
So if we didn't have oxygen masks, we'd be a little bit hypoxic.
Yeah, we'd probably be okay, but I've been up to 20,000 without a mask, but we didn't stay there long. We just pilot and I, we just wanted to see what it's like, so we did it. But I was going at 16 for a couple of hours one time in an EC3, trying to stay above an ice storm. We didn't have any oxygen in that.
Was your, you don't have any oxygen fed in, you just kind of, you're pressurized and that's it?
DC-3, it's not pressurized. There's no
oxygen. DC-3.
Yeah. And I've been through an altitude chamber, actually, where you stayed off till I went out. That was interesting.
I was watching that video of a pilot recently who, I think he G-locked is what it was, and the G-cast actually saved him. It was interesting watching that and kind of watching him wake up because of the alarming woman screaming in his head.
The show Nova one time years ago, they did a show on a fighter pilot's high G loss of consciousness, and they showed a video. It was a two-seat F-16 instructor in the back, and they're out doing some ACM against another airplane, and the instructor calls the bogey at 3 o'clock low. His student riding up front, and your view is you're looking through from a camera over the front seat pilot's shoulder through the HUD.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the HUD, and the peripheral around the canopy out there. Anyway, the instructor said, bogey 3 o'clock low. The student goes, tally ho. and he snaps the jet over to the right and pulls into a descent. Immediately, the G goes right up to 9. And you hear grunts. Well, the instructor thinks the student is grunting, but actually he wasn't grunting, he was passing out. And that was he went out.
Yeah.
They got the nose, they're up at about 33,000 or so. He's got the nose pointed straight down. They pulled in at around 300 knots. They're pointed straight down. And of course, now the altitude starts unwinding and the airspeed starts picking up. And, they're going 310, 320, 330, and the altitude really starts to unwind. The instructor's going, watch your altitude. He didn't know the guy up front passed out. They keep coming down, they're accelerating, and they're passing about 24,000. Watch your altitude. Keep coming down. Finally, the instructor realizes the guy up front's passed out. And he grabbed the stick, and they're passing about 18,000, and he hauls back on his stick right up to 9 Gs again. You hear this guy grunting, but he pulls the airplane out. So,
it's pretty amazing that they can actually do that just by basically. I heard it's a lot like trying to force the shit out of your body.
Yeah.
Is what you're basically doing.
Yeah, and you do it. Yeah, I've watched a couple of those. The centrifuge when they put the pilots in there, and get them through the onset of G and all. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I was watching one where they do all their workups and a lot of guys kind of pass out after 6 on the sustain. There's one that makes it into the 9G like immediate load without passing out, and then they do the one where they just tell them not to breathe and they all pass out just so they know what it's like. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So we are 7-4 switching over to 6-7 X-ray.
Okay. So up here, what do you think our true airspeed might be now?
We're probably pushing 650.
Well, let's see. We can actually look on the map.
Actually, I'm just going about 325 right now, so probably around 600.
We're showing about 530.
Oh, 530. So it isn't that huge of a difference.
No, but still, we're almost 540 knots. So how many miles a minute are we doing? If we're doing 540 knots.
Nautical miles a minute. Actually, doesn't matter what my question is. I don't know the answer.
Well, if you go 60 miles an hour, how far will you go in 1 minute?
60 miles.
60 miles in an hour. How far do you go in 1 minute?
Oh, sorry, in 1 minute. 6 miles.
Think about it. Divide 60 into 60. What do you get?
1 mile.
1. Yeah. 60 miles an hour gives you 1 mile a minute. So if you're doing 120 miles an hour, you're doing 2 miles a minute. So if you're doing 180, you're doing 3 miles a minute. 240, 4 miles a minute. 300, 5 miles a minute. 360, 6 miles a minute. 420, 7. 480, 8. 540, 9. So if you're doing 540, you're doing 9 miles a minute.
9 nautical miles a minute.
Yep. So.
Hey, you guys training right now?
Yeah.
Mind if I join?
Oh, come on in. We're just finishing up the cross-country flight here.
Oh, lovely. Question, what map?
I've got my server on the Caucasus map.
Perfect. I have yet to get the Nevada.
Nevada,
saving
yeah.
up for that. Saving up for pretty cold.
Yeah, I hear that. How you doing there, Wildfire?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Good to meet you.
Both of you?
Hello.
Yeah, Wildfire's just joining also.
Oh, nice.
As of a few days ago.
So what we'll need to do is get together and start with the initial training with you also. But yeah, come on in here and start looking around. So anyway, back to, if we're doing 9 miles a minute, if you're, how far out are we right now? 45 miles? How long do you think it takes to get there?
About 4.5 minutes.
Well, 9 miles a minute should take about 5 minutes. 5 times 9, 45. So, now, the next question. What are we burning on our fuel up here?
Right now, I am showing on the right engine about 1,100 pounds, on the left engine 1,400 pounds. So about 2,500 pounds total.
But don't worry
An
about the
hour.
total. Yeah, don't worry about the total. Because we have 2 engines and 2 separate fuel quantities, what we do, and your fuel flow should match. You should have your throttles paired up together.
Yeah.
So you look at your fuel flow, and just if they're both together at about 1,000 pounds an hour, okay.
Mhm.
So if we're burning 1,000 pounds an hour, how many pounds a minute is that? Again, it's the same deal that
Yeah.
you're doing in speed. If you burn 600 pounds an hour, you're burning 10 pounds a minute.
Yep.
If you're burning 1,200 pounds an hour, you're burning 20 pounds a minute. So we're a little under 20 pounds a minute right up here. And so if we know we're doing 20 pounds a minute per engine, then we look at our lowest fuel quantity, and mine's sitting at about 18 right now.
Yep, mine too.
So if I'm burning 20 pounds a minute, that means every 5 minutes I'll burn 100 pounds. So if I multiply 18 times 5, so
45 and 90.
yeah, you got 90 minutes of fuel left up here. That's pretty good.
Sorry guys, I'll be with you in a minute. I'm getting the mods here set up.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just now of course when the Hornet gets here, you're just gonna be able to look all this stuff up on one of your.
Yeah, it's gonna have the actual.
Yeah, it's gonna have all this data, but this is kind of old school stuff here. When you start looking at this, thinking about what you're doing up here.
Hey, is the carrier mod, is that the carrier group or a single carrier?
It's a single carrier, but have you looked? If you do that, he's got that mod delivery auto loader there.
I'm on the DCS homepage on the user files, and I've got carrier group USS GW Bush.
Nah, you want to use the one on our website.
Oh, I gotcha.
That's the one you want to download and update. It'll give you the liveries and the mods. There's an auto installer set up for that. Okay, we're coming to the airport. Let's set up for the arrival.
What's the password for the area?
Let's see, it is BCBW 112018, all one word.
So I've already got my bug for the heading knob at the 065 for the runway.
Good.
Should I set my course knob there as well now that we basically passed over it?
Yep, you go ahead and set your course knob, and we'll descend and set up for come in for the pattern.
Okay.
VCVW 2018 number.
BCVW 11 2018.
Gonna
All
do idle descent, 350 knots.
Yeah, yeah, that'll work. Hey, you want to start turning back to the field?
And I'm gonna level off Angels 300 knots.
That's it. When does Snake want to start his?
He is probably going to be a long ways off. I don't know if I told you last night or if you've heard,
Oh
but
yeah, right. Yeah, you talking about his internet and all.
yeah, he wants to fly tonight, so I don't know if he'll be on. He said he's not going to be home, so.
Okay. Yeah, just whenever he's ready, we'll get with it, get him going.
Yeah, I told him about what we did last night, and he's pretty excited.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Excellent.
He said, finally, somebody who's going to train us that hasn't learned everything in a 1-hour course for AG.
Yep. There's, I'll tell you something. This is not simple stuff we're doing here. If it's easy, everybody be doing it. You'd be doing it on your Xbox. But you're not. And, the people in here, the people that I work with in here, and we have a really good group in here, but, we're all here because we want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of makes a difference as far as the training goes. You have a pretty motivated group to work with to start with. And it is neat to see all this stuff actually how it works, how it's intended to work. They've done a really good job here in DCS of making it work like it's supposed to.
Just so I make sure I have this right, as we're coming into the downwind leg, this is where I get slow but not low.
Right. They were going to hold our altitude. You want to beam the runway, slow into your gear speed, get your gear out, keep slowing to 200 knots, hold your altitude.
Gears coming down. Oh, yeah, I can feel that. 2, 3 green.
We want to keep slowing, hold your altitude down to 300 knots. 200 knots. Find a lot of up trim. It's going to take a lot of up trim to hold it. And then a lot of power to hold the 200 knots. And you're approaching the shoreline, start to turn the base.
Now it's a descent down to 1500 once we're on base.
Yep, nice easy descent down to 1500 feet, 200 knots. you plan to land on the left side of the runway, and I'll land on the right.
Copy.
Make the turn into final. You know, get to your donut over your bottom chevron, so you're just slightly fast. Line up your camera on the end of the runway. Hold that speed. Slightly fast. Come over the end of the runway, just a little bit of flare. Get into ground effect, and just ease off on the power. Down, drag chute out. There we go. Nothing to it, is it?
Yeah, I didn't have the kind of stable run-in as much as I'd like, but definitely a lot smoother, I think, than last night.
Oh, good job.
Thank you.
I think you understand that TACAN navigation out there. That's good.
It's the first time employing it in that manner, which is, you know, I felt it was pretty true to life, so it's kind of cool getting to see that.
Yeah, yep. Now all that stuff you have now, you'll be able to use when we start talking about case 3 operations, where we're going to use the TACAN to get into a holding pattern. Now, I'm going to show you something. Keep pulling ahead. When you get up to the ramp up there, make a left turn in and go about 3/4 of the way to the left, and then turn back parallel to the ramp and pull ahead some.
Okay.
No, sorry. Turn parallel with the ramp and taxi ahead.
Oh, okay.
Alright, mods are installed. What is the password to the server?
Mine is Go Navy, and the squadron server is Thompson. my password is Go Navy. The squadron password is Go Navy CVW 11.
Got it.
All right. Just pull straight ahead some more. Keep going ahead. I'll tell you when to stop. Yeah, that's good right there. So what you want to do there, Wildfire, is come in on my server. You see it? So what we're going to talk about here for just a minute is formation, flying, and join up.
Mm-hmm.
There are three basic types of joining up into a formation. There's the running join up, the CV join, and the tack in join.
Running, CV, tack in. Okay.
Yep. The running is if you're just flying straight, lead's just flying straight ahead away from you, and you're going to come up behind him and join up on him. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, do not come straight up behind lead. It's hard to judge closure rates when you're coming straight up behind somebody.
Yeah, the more beam you are, the easier it is to judge that, and you, generally speaking, want to keep them out of the glass.
Well, yeah, initially put him about halfway between your glass and your canopy rail.
Okay.
So you want to be about 250 to 300 feet off to the side. When you're beyond a half a mile from him, you can have up to a 50 knot overtake. Okay? But once you're inside a half a mile, you want to be down to about a 25 knot overtake. Now, what we're looking for next is to get on the 30 to 60 degree bearing line from lead. So if you were to look at your right cockpit and say, look at the front of your missile rail.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably about 30 degrees off from the 90 if you look straight out, So about 30 degrees there, and then look back on the back of your missile rail, that's probably about 60 degrees. So if you can imagine your wedge coming out from there.
Yeah.
That's the join-up line you're wanting to get into. So when we're outside of a half a mile, we can be overtaking at 50 knots. Inside a half a mile, you want to be down to about 25 knots. And what's going to happen now is I'm closing on the bearing line, your airplane's going to start walking back to the left across my canopy. Once I get on the bearing line, I want to be down to about a 10 knot overtake.
Mm-hmm.
And once I get on the bearing line, I'm going to start moving down the bearing line until I get into formation. We're looking at two basic formations. We fly the parade and the cruise. The cruise formation is looser. It's further out. So I'm looking to be on your 30 to 60 degree bearing, and I'm looking for my nose to be behind the tail of your airplane, 30 to 50 feet behind your tail.
Okay.
So whatever distance that gives me off of you, to get my nose back there on that bearing line. That's what I'm looking for. The parade formation is I move in a lot closer to where our wingtips are separated by around 4 to 5 feet. And I'm pretty much, when I look out to the left, I'm going to be looking just behind the tailpipe of your airplane. The only time we use parade is when we're coming into the carrier for the break, or, you know, landing at an airfield. That's when you go to parade. Otherwise, you fly out there in the cruise formation.
Okay.
So, you can see where I'm at back here. So if I were joining up, I would be moving up on this line, and I would see your airplane now. You're going to start moving across my glass, across my canopy. So I'm looking to get on your 30 to 60 degree bearing line. So I can look at your missile rail out there, or your missile, till it kind of lines up with your cockpit. And then I'll start coming down the bearing line. Now, of course, in the air, you're not going to be pointing your airplane out. All you're going to be doing is you can actually slide it over the rudder, maybe a little bit of bank, but you kind of want to keep your airplane pointed in the same direction as lead. So then when I get to the cruise position, so I'm out here about in the cruise position. And let me just swing around here.
Something that I noticed when you were lined up is that the tip of your nose is basically at the front of the missile rack, and then the rear, the tail, the nozzles were at the rear of the missile rack. You kind of fit right in there.
So now we pull up into a parade formation out here.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I can look at your missile, how it lines up. I get about halfway in between. So when I look straight out, I'm looking just after your tailpipe, and I'm looking down the 30 to 60 degree bearing line on your airplane.
Okay.
And you see there's not a lot of separation. So this would be the parade position. And just further out on this line is the cruise position. So that's a running rendezvous there. The CV rendezvous. Do you know what? I'm sure you're familiar with lead, pure, and lag pursuit.
Yes.
So you always pull lead pursuit when you're trying to close the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Lag pursuit when you're trying to get a little separation. Of course, pure pursuit is when you're staying right on them. So a CV join up is when lead's making a turn during the join. So say lead takes off and goes into a climbing left turn. You take off, you're also going to turn into this climbing left turn, but you're going to turn now inside of lead into a lead pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
And in this turn, you're going to pull into the 30 to 60 line and then move up that line in that turn. That's a CV join. That's just you're joining up in a turn.
So, kind of based on, normal operation, when we're doing a formation takeoff, would that be considered the CV or a I already forgot what the other one was called.
The one we did on this departure was a running, because
running.
You went straight ahead, and I came up and joined up while we were still in straight flight.
But say we were to do a turn, that would change it to a CV?
That would change it to a CV. And the saying is, once a CV, always a CV. You're always going to join on the inside of lead.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you straighten out, I'm still coming in on that side.
Okay.
and then I would, if I'm going to come over to the right side, I would then duck under and move across. So I wouldn't change. If I started a CV join and you level off, I'm still going to join up in that position. I'm not going to go into a running rendezvous
Okay.
there. And the other join up is called a tack hand join, and that is where you don't depart together because of whatever reason. Um, weather's bad. What you're gonna do.
Payload
what
restriction.
Gonna do is, yeah, lead's gonna go to a known fix like a tack hand station. And when lead gets there, they're gonna start a 30-degree bank at that station at that altitude. Say leads at 10,000 feet. Say we go up to Katasi at 10,000. Leads at 10,000 feet. He starts a turn, a 30-degree bank, and just holds that turn and comes back around to that tack end station at 10,000 feet. Lead is going to announce every 90 degrees in that turn by calling a number. The first number he'll call is when he's overhead the station initially. That'll be 1. And then when he's 90 degrees off of that heading that he used to come in there at, that's 2. And then when he's 180 degrees or abeam the station, that's 3. When he's another 90 behind the station, that's 4. Back to the station, back to 1 again.
Okay, so for that one, he's gonna actually intercept the station. So I know 1's when he's over the station. So is he gonna go out and then he's gonna turn, or is he gonna start a 30-degree bank right from there?
Right from there.
Okay, so that's the number calls.
A circle with the station being the 1 point all the time.
Okay.
Now he's going to be at, say, 10,000 feet. Wing comes in 500 feet below lead.
Okay.
So if lead's at 10, wing comes in at 9,500. And you'll be listening to lead's calls. So as you're approaching the station, by his calls, you'll know where he's at in his turn. Once you spot him, you call visual.
At 2 visual lead.
Yeah. Once you call visual, lead's going to quit calling numbers. Now, you're going to use basically a CV join. Is lead's going to hold the turn, and say you're approaching the station and lead's at 0.3, so he's 180 degrees across from you. You see him over there. You can actually turn across and come across to pick up the CV join there.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get on the angle, 500 feet below, then you just move up into position. So that's a tack hand join.
Okay.
Okay?
So running, CV, tack hand.
Yep. Now, a couple things about doing formation flying. Once you get in formation, we want to stay there. So, anytime we make a turn, normally what lead is going to do, he would announce the turn. Say you're going to turn from north to 270. Lead would say, we're going to turn left to 270, check turn now. When he says now, he's going to roll into his bank, start his turn. Okay? Mm-hmm. Normally lead is going to roll, again, you want to make it, if your lead, nice and stable, steady, 30-degree max bank is all you want to use. So if you took, normally if you're in a room, you'd have the little airplanes on the sticks where you could demonstrate all this stuff.
Yeah.
But we don't have the airplanes on the sticks, but we sort of do in that we have sticks in hand.
Hey, if we need to start a funding thing to get you a webcam and some planes on sticks, let's do it.
So, if you took, say your left hand is lead, and your right hand is wing, so you're in a cruise formation with lead, so you're behind on lead's bearing line down on the right side. Now, lead makes a left turn. When lead rolls, when you roll your airplane, you're rolling on your longitudinal axis. So you imagine your line from your nose to your tail going straight through your airplane. That's your longitudinal axis. So
Mm-hmm.
when you roll, you're rolling on your longitudinal axis. So when lead is turning away, so he's turning away from wing. As soon as lead rolls, guess what? He loses sight of wing, doesn't he?
Yep.
But that's not the big deal. The big deal is wing can never lose sight of lead. So when he rolls on his longitudinal axis away, you roll on your longitudinal axis. So even in your roll, you're still going to be able to keep sight of lead. Now,
Mhm.
as soon as you roll into a turn, you start making circles in the air. Who's making the bigger circle when lead turns away?
In this instance, the wing is because he's outside.
He's outside. So what does wing have to do to maintain his position on lead?
Increased thrust.
Yeah, you got to speed up because you're making a bigger circle. You're tracking a bigger circle through the air. You have to speed up in order to do that. So you're going to bump your power up when lead makes that turn away. You're going to roll on your axis. You'll keep lead in sight. So you're at the same altitude. You're on the same plane as lead, but you're both turning. You're just making a bigger circle now.
Okay, and do we stay co-altitude, or do we actually stay on the same planar level as wing level?
Well, normally when you're in formation, cruise or parade, wing is going to be slightly below or slightly above lead. Normally you're never on the exact same altitude.
Okay.
Unless you're below 500 feet. If you're below 500 feet, then you're both on the same altitude.
Okay.
But other than that, you'll be either slightly below or slightly above. In this airplane, slightly below works a little better because you got better visibility coming up above you because you're sitting in this big bathtub here.
Yeah.
It's harder to see stuff down below you. So in this airplane, if you're slightly below, then that's good. If you're in the Harrier, it doesn't matter. You got good visibility all around that airplane. So
Yeah, you're in a bubble.
anyway, yeah, you're in the bubble. So for us, if you're slightly below, you're just going to maintain that, but you're going to roll with lead, increase your power a little bit to hold your position until lead rolls out, and then you bump your throttle back. Now, if lead turns into you, things get a little different. If he rolls into you, he rolls on his axis. If you roll on your axis, guess what? You lose sight.
Yep.
As soon as you roll your belly up, you can't see me anymore. Well, you can't do that. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go into a welded wing formation. And it's like you attach the two wings together.
Yeah, that's
So
what I'm
in order
used
to
to.
do
Is
that, you're right.
sorry, go ahead.
So when lead rolls into you, you've got to descend and roll at the same time. Now it gets a little more complicated power-wise. Now who's making the bigger circle?
The lead is.
Lead is, but he's not going to change his speed, but you're going to change yours. So you're going to have to take a little power off to adjust for the smaller circle. Also, you're going to be descending. When he's rolling, you're dropping down. So you've got to make a little power reduction for that descent. But then when you stop your descent, you've got to add that descent power back in there. You've still got your reduction for the smaller circle, but now we take our descent power back out so we can hold this position.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he rolls out, we got to reverse all that. We got to bump a little power for the climb back up. We got to bump a little power because we're now coming back on the same plane. And then when you get up, you got to take out the climb power. That make sense?
Yep.
Now, let me show you one other deal here. I'm going to move off. And You remember we talked a little bit about an underrun.
Yeah.
So the whole deal is, um, well, in formation flying, the terms acute and suck.
I'm sorry?
Have you ever heard the terms acute or suck?
No.
All right, acute. That's when you go forward of the bearing line on lead. When you move forward of that 30 degrees, you become acute. When you move aft of the bearing line, you become suck. Now, when you go acute, what happens is you can lose sight of lead.
Yep.
When you go suck, lead can lose sight of you. So, um, you don't ever want to go acute where you lose sight of lead, because now um, you really have no idea of how to get back other than making some big gyration to get out of the way. But if you find yourself coming in too fast, what you'll do is an underrun.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were coming down the bearing line and I was coming in too fast, so I'm coming down and I recognize I've got too much speed. I'm not going to be able to scrub it off. What I would do is an underrun. So what I'm going to do is I would make a turn. I would chop the throttle, extend the speed brakes, and I go into a lag pursuit. So,
Okay.
and I'll drop down. I'll come under you. With this turn, I go into lag with the power off and the speed brakes extended. So now what's going to happen is you're going to separate out in front of me, and then once our speed gets back together, I can drop the speed brakes, power back in, and then when that happens, so I'm just kind of amplifying things.
Yeah.
Right here. So
Obviously, you would
I
both be moving forward, so you wouldn't have to drive backwards.
right. So I would then come in on this side right here, and then once I got in formation, I would just move across to the other side.
Okay.
So that's the underrun. And the deal is the whole time when you're making your underrun, you never lose sight of lead. So you can drop under, go into lag pursuit, but you can still keep him in sight. Once
Okay.
the speed gets down, you drop your speed brakes back up on the throttle, move back into the bearing line on the other side, move into the formation, then you can drop across to the other side.
Okay. And is there a brevity call for that?
You just announce your underrunning.
Okay. So imagine that'd be good information to know when you're running 4-stick for the other two guys that are trying to fly formation.
Yep. So, yeah, right. Normally, you run a section is a 2-ship formation, an element is a 4-ship.
Mm-hmm.
And normally you run an element as 2 2-ships. So you would have yourself and your wing on your right side. You'd have the other section, their lead sitting over here, and then his wingman sitting to the left of him. Only when you approach the carrier would you say move into an echelon formation.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a lot easier when you're doing formation training. Just keep it as a 2-ship. Don't try to herd around a 4-ship formation trying to do formation when you're learning.
Okay.
Anyway, that's the formation flying. The basics of it right there. When we get into squad level training, we start working on more advanced formations as far as like combat spreads and stuff like that. But
Okay.
we start with the basics. Physically, aerodynamically, what's happening out here. There are a couple of things that you have to think about when you're doing this. Also, one is it's easy to fall behind. It's hard to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Why is that? Physically, aerodynamically, what's happening? Why is it so hard to catch up again aerodynamically?
Once you lose that speed, you basically lost a lot of energy and
Yep.
stored energy, and getting that energy back is pretty hard.
Right.
So a lot of
It is.
times, I think for the previous stuff that we've done, when we had kind of a chance to overshoot and we recognized it really early, we actually ascended at that point to store that energy and then bleed it off as they're coming back down.
Well, I tell you, aerodynamically, what's happening out here? We talked about the four forces of flight. You got lift and gravity, thrust and drag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, right, I can tell you, for every knot you increase your airspeed, your drag coefficient squares. For every knot that you increase your airspeed, your drag coefficient squaring, your power required to overcome drag is quadrupling.
Wow.
If you had a motorboat and you had a 50 horsepower engine on the back of it, and you could do 40 knots over the water with that 50 horsepower engine, if you wanted to get another 10 knots of speed, you would have to go to a 100 horsepower engine. So to get a quarter more speed, you're going to have to go to 100 horsepower to get that speed. So what happens is, when you fall behind, now you got to push the power up, but your power requirement is quadrupling to get that speed back, to overcome that drag that's squaring out there. That's why it's so hard to catch up once you fall behind. All right. Let's see here. Have you flown the Harrier much?
Yep.
You're all set up for it?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, formation is a lot easier in the Harrier because you get a lot better response, and Lee can set the autopilot and get it really stable.
Yeah, become a fixed thing.
But,
yeah.
Let's see, what time is it? Oh, 5:30. Why don't we take a little break? And if you're around this evening when I get back, getting old, you want to go out and get dinner early, so that's what I'm getting ready to do.
They call you the Blue Bins Brigade for a reason.
That's right. Growing old ain't for pussies. So. We'll take a little break here, and when we come back, we'll do some of this formation flying.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do it in this airplane. It's the good thing about doing it in the F5 is when you get halfway decent, the other airplanes are a piece of cake.
Yeah, I noticed that flying formation in this thing so far has been a bitch, and
it's a challenge.
Yeah, I'm used to F-16. You got command navigation to where you put the pepper where you want it, and the aircraft does whatever it can to make sure you're on that. So once you put it there, you don't have to do much to stay in formation, aside from look good.
That's right. Not that way in this airplane, but like I say, when you get where you're just halfway decent here, you're going to be wonderful in the others. And of course, why you do formation flying.
So I know there's some fuel efficiency when you're close in.
Well, not only that,
also protection of your element too.
Yeah, and but when you want to go to a tanker, you really got to be good at formation flying.
I've done a lot of tanking.
To tank up, and also, it's good for combat. If you want to shoot somebody down with a gun, you're going to pretty much get the same formation with them.
Yep.
So, So yeah, we'll plan on doing that. So we'll do some formation stuff. Then we're going to go out to the carrier. We're going to talk about the Case 1 operation. And then our engine out stuff and, crosswind and day and night landings.
Sounds like a plan.
So let's jump off of here. I'm going to shut this down. Let you get out before I shut it down. Sometimes the game seems to lock up if the server goes down and you're still in it.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for the lesson. It was, again, really
good.
impressive and lots of knowledge.